The James Show Podcast.
Schools finally get their grades in Texas. It's kind of ironic because they're schools and now they're getting graded and they're like, Some schools did well. Some schools did poorly. I like what WFAA did, and they ranked them. The 10 top scoring schools in North Texas, just our region. We don't care how the schools are way up in the Panhandle, almost Colorado are doing, do we? We're self-centered. So in the North Texas area, WFAA split it out 10 best, 10 worst. Now, we need to have a very adult conversation. We need to be mature about this, but we need to talk about what works and what doesn't. Why do some schools get a very good grade and some schools get a very bad grade? And before we even start, calling in and cussing at each other, let's go ahead and run through some of the likely culprits here. Because some people, the people who already want to grow government and thinking, utopia is just another government program away, they will tell you that the biggest reason some schools do good and some schools do poorly is socioeconomic factors. Well, they're rich, of course they do better. Well, they're poor, of course they do worse. Well, why is that? What's the difference there? Does that mean the rich schools can pay their teachers more and they get better teachers? Does that mean poor schools, the schools that perform poorly, pay their teachers less and so they don't get good teachers? Well, that would be easy to flesh out in the data that we have available, because now we can look at the schools that did terrible. And are they paying their teachers significantly less than the schools that did fantastic? I don't mean average. I don't mean above average. I don't mean good. I mean fantastic. And then we can compare the best schools around here to the worst schools around here. There, I hit it. Sorry. I done it because I said my kid's school. We'll compare that to Bug Tussle, and then we'll learn. Because the school that did the third best around here is Lovejoy. They did the third best. Number 1 was Highland Park. Number 2, Carroll. Number 3, Lovejoy. I wanted to pick Lovejoy out because it's not some pretty much just gigantic subdivision that happens to have a school district like Highland Park and Carroll here. Lovejoy's a good mix. It's racially diverse, economically diverse. It's kind of suburb, kind of exurb, parts rural. Lovejoy, did you know they pay their teachers less than the worst performing school in North Texas, which is Lake Worth ISD? Lake Worth got a 62. 62 out of 100 was their grade. Lovejoy got a 94 out of 100. Now, if it's purely socioeconomic factors and the fact that, well, they have more money so they can pay their teachers more and they can have better facilities and so therefore that they get a better result, that's already blown out of the water on the first statistic. What else you got? No one wants to bring up race. I'm kind of hesitant to bring it up too because I can only get myself in trouble. When I go through and I look at the data, though, I think we have an incomplete score. Because what my theory on the defining factor here isn't measured in the data. Because what I think Highland Park has, what I think Carroll has, Lovejoy has, some of these other top school districts have, that the ones that don't have, number 1, isn't money, it's dads. But I can't prove or disprove my position because I don't know what percentage of kids at Lake Worth ISD have their biological mother and father present in the home, raising them as the plain old traditional, boring, vanilla nuclear family. But let's roll through, and I'm gonna list out the schools, and I want you to give me your theories. You heard my theory. I think it's dad. Some people think it's race. Some people think it's money. Some people think it's poverty or single motherhood or racism. Number 1, Highland Park. We might have guessed that. Number 2, Carroll ISD. The third best school in North Texas, Lovejoy, Savelis Bend, Huckabee, Sunnyvale, Capel, Palo Pinto, Melissa, Wiley, Argyle, Grafford. I haven't even heard of that one. And Aledo. Those are your top 10. Give yourself a round of applause. And who gives them a round of applause? The parents of those towns. Give yourself a round of applause. The 10 lowest rated districts in North Texas. Number 1, Lake Worth. Then it goes to Greenville, Gainesville, Bridgeport, Poolville, Kemp, Commerce, Corsicana, Crandall, Venus. Would you be interested to know that Highland Park, the number 1 rated school district in all of North Texas, on average, pays their teachers less than the school district that does the worst, Lake Worth? Isn't that kind of mind-blowing? Because I can see how it's counterintuitive. You know, you would think, well, these poor school districts, they do terrible. They don't have the money to pay the teachers, and all the teachers go to the good school districts because the good school districts pay more. What I've learned from teachers is that pay is only a part of it. They would gladly take a pay cut if it meant fewer disciplinary problems. They would gladly get paid less money if it meant the parents were more helpful. They would gladly take less money for a better experience. So that, the pay scale, the average teacher salary in Lake Worth, $65,466. For Highland Park, $64,146. For Lovejoy, which is not only number 3, it's not the top 1, not top 2, but it's in the top 3, $59,701. You go all the way to Buck Tussle, which got a solid B. Buck Tussle didn't do too bad. It got 88 out of 100. They pay their teachers $51,936. So a school that pays $10,000 less than the state average gets better results than the school that pays more, $3,000 more than the state average. Isn't that mind-boggling? When you go break it up by race, I mean, you can kind of find some correlations there, but you can find some exceptions to the rule there too. So race doesn't correlate that bad. And of course, it's not the color of your skin that makes you a good student. I think the reason that why you see any movement in when you break it down by race is some races have more fathers. They just, it's an individual decision that many people have made over and over and over. And it bears out in the macro statistics that the communities that have more kids that are being raised by their biological parents definitely have better educational outcomes. Another interesting piece of the data, the teacher-student ratio doesn't tend to correlate. And we have the weird situation again, where you would think, well, you know, Highland Park probably does better than the terrible schools over on Lake Worth because, you know, they've got so much money. Maybe they don't pay their teachers as much, but they have more of them. Actually, Lake Worth has a lower student per teacher ratio than Highland Park. In fact, Buck Tussle's in the middle. Lake Worth, 13 students per teacher. Buck Tussle, 13.5. Highland Park, 13.8. Highland Park gets the best results with the worst student-teacher ratio in the example sample here. What the heck is going on? I can tell you what's going on. Here's what a lot of teachers say. Here's what a lot of administrators say. There's only so much you can do. There's only so many laws you can change. There's only so many rules you can tweak. You know, do the dress code? Do we do uniforms? The thought process is if you took the administration from the worst performing school and you put them in Highland Park, you put them in charge of Highland Park, you'd still get pretty damn good results at Highland Park. And if you took the Highland Park faculty and you put it at the worst school in the Lake Worth district, you'd still get dismal results. Yes, teachers matter. Yes, administrators matter. But not nearly as much as what? This is going to break some hearts. Parenting. One of the big correlations I've found in the data, it comes with how many students are enrolled in English as a second language programs. And if you get above 10% or so on that, your school's getting crushed. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about illegals. Yeah. I mean, how else do you explain being 6 years old or 7 years old and you don't understand English? You're not from here. And sure, a lot of people might have moved here legally, but I don't think that's the majority of what's filling up the ESL programs And don't at me. My grandmother was an ESL teacher. This is Karen and Justin. You're on WBAP.
Yes. Just kind of my opinion about it. You know, you made the comment about it's because of the dad's not involved.
Yeah.
I think it's period, the parents aren't involved. When the parents are not involved, knowing what's going on in the school system, know what their kids are doing, the schools are not responsible for raising our children. And unfortunately, there's a lot of attitude because of this whole entitlement that we have right now that, I don't have to raise my kid. That's what the teacher's there for.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. And you have a totally sympathetic ear on the idea that there's a bunch of parents who are together who are still doing a terrible job raising their kids. But there's a lot of people when I have these discussions, they mishear me. I'm not saying all single mothers do a bad job. I'm not saying all blended families do a bad job. I'm not saying step parents can't, be good parents and have good results. But when you put it all together, the number one deciding factor on, experientially on whether or not a kid is going to, have a successful transition into adulthood is whether or not they were born in wedlock and raised by their biological parents. And,
right.
I mean, there's a reason why my sister works at Bug Tussle School System. She's an elementary school teacher out there. And there's a reason why she works at a school district that pays $10,000 less than the state average. It's because she doesn't want to go somewhere where they pay more and she has to deal with horrible kids who have discipline problems. And then the horrible kids have crappy parents. And so I think that's a big factor in why a lot of teachers choose their job. And it's not just all about money.
No, it's not about the money. It's about we need to discipline our children. Stop the whole being so kind and not saying no to our children. Come on. This is what's wrong with society. They don't know how to take a no.
Well, and I also find this optimistic in the fact that it can be fixed.
Absolutely.
If this is socioeconomic, then there's not a whole lot we can do. Poor people are always going to be poor. Rich people are always going to be rich. And that's just not fair. But what we've learned here is that poor people or poor students of poor families, if they are in the household with their biological mother and father, they do better than rich kids who aren't. And so the onus isn't, well, we need another union or we need more pay or we need more spending or $8 billion more for public education or it's not even school vouchers. It's dads is what it is.
Yeah, it's dads, it's moms, it's the involvement. If you're not involved with your kids and not know what's going on, they're not going to learn what they need to learn.
All right. Good stuff. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate you calling in.
No problem. Mm-hmm.
This is Adam in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP. Where are you at, Adam?
Well, I'm in Fort Worth right now, and I currently go to the Keller ISD as a parent, but I think your problem is actually trifecta. It's actually threefold.
Okay.
When you don't have a parenting group that takes care of their kids and parents their kids and raises them correctly, and then the second pillar of that trifecta is you have school systems who are so indoctrinated by the unions and by people who want the education to be converted from math, science, history, social studies, and what have you to make sure every kid believes that they can tell their teachers things and that parents shouldn't know what's going on with their kids in school, especially if they have a viewpoint.
Wait a second. Hang on.
Supports.
You know what? I really should have brought this up when I started talking about this. There is an interesting phenomenon that happens with really rich people and really poor people. And there's a lot of them. And one of them is they have a tendency to be liberal. Very rich people, affluent, white bourgeois liberals are a thing. And they vote the same way as the people who are doing drive-bys or the people who are living in the slums or the people who are having a hard time economically, just not as successful, living on the bad side of town and the dangerous crime-ridden. They have a completely different worldview and experience, but they vote the same way. And so when you go to some of these bourgeois liberal schools, they are teaching all this weird stuff, the social justice warrior, the critical race theory, just as the same as the ones that are doing absolutely terrible. So I don't think that's it at all, because if you have good parents and good students, even if your school has terrible curriculum, even if they have the terrible worldview, even if they're woke as heck, you still get good results. It's about dad. It's not even wokeism.
I think you do, but I think it's part of the problem, because if you have a child, even if you're a good parent, that puts up a good front in front of you and tells you everything you want to hear, and then goes to school and does something completely different, and then there's a disconnect. I just think that's one of the problems. But then the final problem, I think, is our current law system when it comes to, setting the standard for act this way in school. This is what's going to happen. And the fact that there's lack of discipline there, too, it's just a complete disconnect between all three groups, which cause total breakdown of the system.
Yeah, well, look, discipline's a big part of it. But again, I think that is also the foundation of that problem is in the home and the lack of it then.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
I think the parents are the founding cornerstone of everything. But if you have the parents that are good and doing their job, but the other two prongs of the system aren't supporting the parental role, then the parents can only do so much. And I think we need a complete overhaul.
Well, good chat. I appreciate you calling in. This is Adam in Fort Worth, killing it on the James Show. Thank you, sir. And this is John in Valley View. You're on WBAP.
Hey, James. Something I don't know if anybody's touched on yet, but a lot of your better teachers, the ones that value education, where they're going to migrate to your schools to have a better education system, even for less money, because they're raising their kids there. They want their kids to have a better education. So I think that's going to bring in your better teachers for less money. And I've seen more times than not, there's been teachers after their kids graduate, they go to another school where they can make more money.
That I have seen, and you're absolutely right. But again, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying the backstop to all this isn't throwing more money at it. It's not, or it's not blaming someone who colors outside the lines of wokeism. It's not some sort of policy that can be tweaked and changed. You're just stuck with the parents of the community of that school.
Absolutely.
And
the disciplinary is definitely the top driver, but that's where you're going to take your kids.
And so also, what does this mean that we can do in the meantime? And we're not going to fix bad parents. We're always going to have bad parents. We can try and minimize it. We can, certainly adopt policies and social norms that would have less of a prevalence of bad parents. But what a great argument this is for school choice, because if you happen to be one of the few good parents in a school district where you're overwhelmingly dominated by terrible parents, wouldn't it be nice if you could escape the prepaid government monopoly that is the socialized school system?
Absolutely.
Well, that's a great point. I'm glad you called in, John. Valley View. Appreciate it, sir.
All right. Thanks, sir.
This is Harry in Walburn. You're on WBAP.
Yes. I graduated Highland Park in 1973, many moons ago. And back then,
when it was a suburb? I'm just kidding.
Pardon?
Back when it was a suburb?
Yeah. No, it was still surrounded. Anyway, we had classes. We had math, reading, literature, art, music, foreign languages, physical science, social studies, on and on and on. But we didn't have any indoctrination type, wokeism type classes. And I think part of it, too, the parents are really big. I get that. Everybody's gone there. But I think also we had 5 television stations back in the day. We didn't have 300 of them spouting different things. So a lot of the kids learned from TV or social media or things, and that's where they're picking up a lot of things they're not really getting in school. And I think it's partially parents and partially what's taught in a lot of the schools.
Well, Harry, the kids at Highland Park, Carroll, and Lovejoy have access to the same 400 TV channels and infinity watching options online as the kids who do go to the terrible schools.
I agree, and I think the parents there are the big difference. Said earlier, the parents are the big difference. And if you have good reinforcement of parental skills and passing that on to the kids, that's big, and good teachers too.
Well,
so
how do you fix that, Harry? That's your concern. What do you do to fix the fact that kids are watching too much TV or have too many options where they're learning bad stuff or not learning at all?
Well, I think that goes back to having parents you got to have some boundaries. And that's tough to do because kids want to do what the other kids are doing. And maybe they're learning things that their parents didn't, and their parents can't keep up with the science or with iPhones and technology. And the kids they're really tied into it. So it's tough. I don't know that there's an easy answer.
Definitely not. But hey, I think you're on the right track. This is Harry in Walburn. Thank you very much for calling WBAP. Jimmy, Fort Worth, you're on WBAP. You're going to be my last word on this. What do you think?
Am I on?
Yes, sir. Go, Jimmy.
Okay, Jimmy. I'm sorry.
I'm a Jimmy too. It doesn't
James.
matter.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Yes, number one is parent involvement,
Yep.
and number two is Austin, Texas. You look at your STAR test, your task test, or whatever the flavor is of the year now. They juggle the numbers so that the schools can pass their students low ball, easy ball crap. Look at the amount of students that are graduating that can't read or write.
Okay, but that doesn't.
The whole thing is a sham.
Yeah, okay, but that doesn't stop the good school districts from cranking out good results. When you look at Highland Park, when you look at Carroll, when you look at Lovejoy, their average SAT score is like 350 points higher than Lake Worth. So we're still getting. Well, they're under Austin too. So how did they get around it? But these other ones don't. It's not just Austin.
Well, there isn't any just one answer to the whole. It's everything as a whole.
Yeah.
We want to blame socioeconomic tragedy and it's pouring into the schools. It's pulling the schools down. It's everything, James, and that's the problem. We need to tear this thing down, and parents get involved that really care. And just redo the whole thing.
Wait. Oh, hang on. You got me excited.
We're doing to our children.
Other Jimmy, you got me excited. When you say tear this whole thing down, you mean get rid of public schools?
We need to look at how how the rules are set up and who do they favor.
Jimmy, I'm brave enough to say it. We should get rid of public schools. This is like one of my most unpopular opinions that I know most people disagree with. I'm not scared to say it anymore. There's a preponderance of evidence and data, and I can defend this to the hilt. Get rid of public schools.
If that's what it takes for our kids to be able to graduate and learn and know how to read and write, and know what some sort of history of this country is, where we came from, and where they want to go from graduation day forward.
Got it. Love it.
If that takes ending public schools, go for it. I'm all in, man.
Well, don't be so shy about it next time. Thank you very much. That's Jimmy in Fort Worth.
The James Show Podcast.